Hi, it's Judy and welcome to another video. So today I am coming to you with a wrap up. So I haven't done a wrap up for quite a while. I didn't realise that some of these books I'd actually even read last month. They felt like I'd read them like ages ago, so it's really weird how long October actually felt, because I'm seriously confused at how some of these were books that I read during October. I was pretty sure that I read them in September, but according to Goodreads it was October. So yeah, a little bit confused by October as a whole because it was such a long month. So if I have forgotten some of my thoughts on these books, then that is why. It is simply because I just cannot remember. So yes, this video should be fun. During October I finished 10 books in total, and I finished a big one, which I'm really proud of. I'm going to drop these, so I'm just going to sit them here. So yes, I finished 10 books in total, which is really good for me, especially considering last month I was working a lot. So I think my week off definitely helped with vampathon and things. So yeah, I'm really happy with 10 books. That's amazing for me. Hopefully I can make it to 10 books again this month, but we shall see. But yes, I am here with a wrap up, and I'm gonna have to refer to Goodreads because I can't remember the rating I gave some of these. So yeah, the first book I finished in October was this one here. So I have spoken about this in a few vlogs now, and I've raved about this book a bit. So I finished this book at the start of October, and this is actually a proof. This comes out in January next year, I believe, and this is one of my favourite books I've actually read this year. So this is actually a middle grade. It's called The Forest of Moon and Sword, and it is by Amy Raphael, and I absolutely adore this. I think the author's actually from sort of my local area, so that's really cool as well. But yes, I absolutely adored this book, and this is probably one of the best children's books I've ever read. It is fantastically written. Amy really has a way of writing children's books in a really fun and entertaining way that grips you, but also kind of educates you at the same time, which I find is probably a very difficult thing for some writers to do, because obviously writing a children's book, it needs to be fun and engaging, because quite often children can get bored very easily and very quickly. So trying to get important bits of history and information into a book as well as making it fun is very difficult, but Amy did it amazingly, and I just absolutely adored this. So I will link vlogs that I talk about this book down below, and I have wrote a review for this on Goodreads and on Wordstone, so I will link those down below so you can read my review because it's very thorough. But there's a lot of historical elements to this book, containing witches and the witch trials that occurred across England and Scotland in the 1600s, and Amy kind of took this historical event and created this incredible story, and I just absolutely loved it. We've got magical realism in here, we've got like that historical element, we've got a badass little main character, and we've got family and relationships and self-discovery. There's all kinds of good things in here, and I literally just, I cannot recommend this book enough. Even if you don't read middle grades, I'd still recommend you reading this because it's absolutely fantastic, and I just adored it. I gave this 5 stars, of course, and I cannot wait until this comes out in January, because I will be ranting and raving to everybody about this book and recommending this book like crazy, because it is just that good, and I really do think this is just an exceptionally well done children's book. So I would definitely highly recommend this book to children and adults alike, because it is just absolutely great. And yeah, you can just tell how much I love this book. But yeah, I definitely gave this 5 stars and I adored it. I'm going to be rereading this again in January when it comes out, so I will leave the link to pre-order this book down below as well. But yeah, I just love it so much. I also really hope there's a sequel in the works because I want one. Next, I finished this book here. So this is Before the Coffee Gets Cold. I cannot pronounce the name. It's Toshikazu Kawaguchi. I probably have just butchered that name because I am very terrible pronunciation of things, but you will all probably be quite familiar with this book. It's been very popular, and the sequel kind of came out I think last month. I haven't read it yet, but I do have it, which is Tales from the Cafe. But this is Before the Coffee Gets Cold. I rated this 3 stars because this is written fantastically. The writing is amazing for this, and it's very interesting. It's kind of split into 3 parts from what I remember, so it's like 3 chapters. It kind of follows 3 different characters, and a different kind of difficulties they're having in life and things they're dealing with. And these 3 characters all visit this cafe, and this cafe actually grants people the ability to go back in time to a specific moment, but they cannot change it, and nothing that they do in the past will change the future. But it's really interesting to meet these 3 different characters and see why they decide to go back in time, and the conversations they have again, and just all the things that brings the characters as well. But all of these characters kind of know each other through this cafe, so it's really interesting the way this is written, and I surprisingly enjoyed it. This isn't something I'd usually read. I don't read a lot of fiction. I'm a fantasy YA kind of gal, as you all know. So this was a little bit out there for me, but I did enjoy it, and I really enjoyed the writing and some of the things that it touched upon in here. I particularly like the character that was kind of dealing with her partner having dementia and couldn't really remember her anymore. I thought the way that was written was really well done, and I really enjoyed that as well, and seeing something from that perspective. Yeah, I gave this 3 stars and I did really enjoy it. I am gonna listen to the audiobook for the second book at some point. So yeah, I did enjoy it and I gave it 3 stars. So the next book that I finished is one that really scared me, and again I have talked about previously in a vlog, but that is Coraline by Neil Gaiman. I've been meaning to read this book for so long, and I'm so glad that I finally have. I still haven't finished watching the movie. I started watching it during Vampathon and then I had to pause it and go do something, so I do need to finish watching the movie, but I'm really glad that I've read the book before I've watched the film. I really enjoyed this book. It's very weird, and I still can't believe this was a children's book. Like, it is actually terrifying. Like, it is so scary. In my head I'm picturing her other mother as being this evil entity. That's how I've kind of interpreted it, and it really did remind me of the movie Insidious. I don't know why, it just really did kind of give me the kind of vibe of this girl being able to, the way Coraline can go into this kind of other world, and there's spirits of other children there who the mother has kind of, I don't want to give spoilers, but I guess a lot of you will have seen the film and stuff, but like there's these other like children who I think are like spirits, like this other mother has taken their souls kind of thing. And she's obviously trying to take Coraline's, and she needs to save her parents and all this, and she's in this other world, and that's how I've interpreted it, as the other mother being this kind of evil entity, and she kind of preys upon children and wants to steal their souls. That's kind of how I have interpreted it, and I found it very scary, and it was fantastic. It was written so cool. Like, I really have enjoyed reading this book, and it was the first Neil Gaiman book that I've actually ever read, and as a result I've actually ended up picking up some more of his books. I really enjoyed this, and I flew through it in like a day or two, because obviously it's not too long. But yeah, this is really creepy, and it's just a really unique tale, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. I really love Coraline. She's just so sarcastic and like funny, and yeah, she's a really interesting character, and I just really like this. So I'm really glad that I read it, because I actually ended up picking up another one of Neil Gaiman's books recently, which I've finished this month, which I'll talk about in my November wrap up, and I really enjoyed that. And I've also now picked up some of his other books. So yeah, I'm really glad that I read Coraline, because I felt like Coraline was a really good introduction to Neil Gaiman's writing, and I just really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to actually finish watching the movie, because I really did love the book. So yes, I gave this 5 stars. So I can't remember if this was the next book I finished or not, so this might not be exactly in order, but I finished Vampire Academy during Vampathon, so you would have seen me wrap this up in my Vampathon reading vlog, which I'll have linked down below. I gave this 5 stars, I think, and I really enjoyed this. I read this in less than 24 hours. I flew through it. I think Rochelle Mead just has a way of writing books that are so easy to read. I don't know how or why that is. It was just so easy for me to read this. I just flew through it, and I just really enjoyed it. I wasn't sure if I was going to. I love the movie, it's a guilty pleasure, but I just wasn't sure, because this is kind of one of those cringy OG YA books that I wasn't sure if would be a book that I had to have read and loved at a younger age rather than now. But I still actually did really enjoy this, obviously by giving it 5 stars. I've picked up the sequel, and I'm planning to read that this month. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. The vampirism in this book is very different and unique, and there's different kinds of vampires, which is an aspect of this I really liked. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it. It was just a fun quick read, and yeah, 5 stars. Of the other books in this wrap up now, I've already talked about and touched upon in my Vampathon day 5 and 6 vlog, which I'll have linked down below. but I'll just quickly fly over these again. But I did finish the Twisted Tree during Vampathon. I listened to this on audio and I really enjoyed this. It's a Nordic tale and it's very like eerie and atmospheric and quite scary at times, and I really like the use of Norse mythology in this story as well, because we had things to do with Odin in here and it was just so interesting listening to the mythology in this book. So if you like mythology, then I'd highly recommend this, because there's a lot of that in here and it ties in really well to the story. And yeah, there was a lot of kind of good character development in this book as well, and it was just very eerie and creepy and I just really enjoyed it. I think I gave this 3.5 stars, and yeah, I think it's really good for people who like mythology and just like a quick creepy read. I'd definitely recommend it for that. But yes, 3.5 stars for this one. Next up is one of my new favourite books ever, and we all knew I was going to love this. It's witchy and it's just me. I loved it. I really want to be the main character. But this book is A Discovery of Witches by Diana Gabaldon. Diana Gabaldon? What? Why is that in my head? By Deborah Harkness. I don't know why I said Diana Gabaldon. Weird. But yes, this is by Deborah Harkness and I adored this. 5 out of 5 stars. Loved it. I annotated this while I read it. I started reading this for the real-time read-along originally, and then I just kind of ended up finishing it before then. I just really love this book. It was so good. But yes, I did annotate it, and you can tell that I really liked it by how many sticky tabs are inside this book. Like, that is a lot of sticky tabs. I went through so many packs of sticky tabs. But yeah, I absolutely loved this book so much. I love Diana. I want to be Diana. Do you ever read a book and then once you finish it, or while you're reading it, you kind of absorb things from that character and kind of want to be them? Or is it just me? Like, I found myself kind of buying clothes that I thought Diana would wear, which is, I know, is really weird, but surely I'm not the only person who does this, who kind of like absorbs personality traits from the main characters in the books they read. I don't know, I want to be Diana Bishop. Like, I just love everything about her and her whole like aesthetic, and I just adored this book. The only criticism I have is the romance is a very fast paced, and this is, I think, one of the key points for people that will even make or break this book. It will make you either love it or hate it, because the romance happens like that. It's like insta love, and it is weird, but I interpreted it as being the fact that these are two supernatural creatures who don't think and feel like normal human beings, so obviously romance is very different for them. And I think that's kind of the point, that it happens so fast, is that for vampires in particular, there is this like instinct of like a mate, and like this kind of how they feel, because they don't feel quite often. And I think that was kind of the point. I feel like the author kind of used the romance to emphasize certain parts of Matthew and Diana's personalities and the way they think and feel, and it kind of, I don't know, unless you've read it you won't really get it, but or if you've seen the TV show as well, but it is kind of insta love, but it makes sense in the plot. I feel like maybe when I get to book 2 and 3, obviously the insta love will kind of make more sense. I don't know, but I guess that's the only like off thing, was that there wasn't really any slow burn or kind of well-paced romance in here, which is usually what I like. But I think it was intentional, and I still really enjoyed their romance, and I still vibe with this book. I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. I definitely recommend this book to anyone who likes anything with magic, which is a really strong female character who has really cool powers and is probably like one of the most powerful kind of people about in her world. If you like romance, fantasy, all of that stuff, then this book is probably for you. I just think that you need to go in knowing that the romance happens very fast, and it is a little bit cliche at times, but yeah, if you're okay with that, then I do think you would enjoy this book. I'm very excited for Shadow of Night, and yeah, I'm just obsessed. Next we have 2 mangas. So these are the first mangas I've ever read, and I really love them. I've actually bought another 8 volumes of this series, and I have read the 3rd volume, but that will be in my November wrap up. But this is volumes 1 and 2 of Vampire Night. So I've spoken about these again in my other vlog, but I really enjoyed these. I knew I'd like manga anyway, because I read a lot of graphic novels, and obviously manga and graphic novels are quite similar, and I'm just really enjoying the story, and just, yeah, I just really like them. I don't even know why I like them so much, I just do. I have also been watching the anime on Netflix, and yeah, I'm just really enjoying these. I guess If you're someone like me who's read a few graphic novels before and you're looking to dive into manga, I seem to have enjoyed these a lot, so maybe these would be a good pick for you to read as well. But yeah, I gave both of these 5 stars each, and I'm very, very excited to read the rest of the series. I really like the main characters, and I really like this guy Zero. Love him. So yeah, I'm really, really enjoying this series. 5 out of 5 stars for volumes 1 and 2. Next we have this big ow. I just hit myself in the collarbone, and you have no idea how much that hurt because this is a big ass book. Ow. But next we have this big book here. So this is Pride of the Orange Tree. I listened to this on audio. I definitely feel like that was a mistake. I feel like I need to physically read this book to enjoy and appreciate it more. I just listened to it on audio because I wanted to get through it this year, and I was originally reading this for a buddy read, and audio was going to be the only way last month that I could actually get through this because it's such a big book. You will have seen in my previous vlogs, I really did struggle with this book. It was very, very confusing for me, and it was up until the end. I did start to enjoy it a lot more when I got halfway, and there's some really, really good action-packed scenes in here, and this is a very, very good fantasy book. It's so well written. The world building is amazing. The characters are really well done. The character development, the romance in here, and all the action, everything in here is really, really good. It's just I had to give this a 3-star rating simply because I was so freaking confused most of the time. There was just a bit too much information chucked at me, and I feel like for anybody else I think this would mostly be 4 or 5 stars, and I would recommend this to anyone looking for a good fantasy book. Like, I do think this would be ticking all the boxes. It's just for me it was a little bit too complex, a little bit too much, and I just couldn't wrap my head around any of it. So that's why I gave it 3 stars. It is really well written though, I can tell that, and that is what I mean when I say I can't appreciate it as good as I should be able to, because I think I need to physically read this, read it very slowly, and maybe read it at a different point in time when I'm not extremely busy and I'm more in the mood to be reading a really hardcore complex fantasy, because that is what this is. It is literally the ultimate fantasy book. Like, you can't get more fantasy than this, and you've got your dragons, you've got really good world building, politics, war, magic, mages, all different stuff in here, like all the elements of fantasy. Everything that makes a good fantasy is in here. But yeah, those were the reasons why I just couldn't give it a 5-star, was because I just didn't really know what was going on half the time, and I'm still a bit confused and still a bit unsure. So if someone asked me what this book was properly about, I probably couldn't tell you the whole plot. I did enjoy a lot of it still, and like I said, it is just because of me not being able to wrap my head around it properly. So I gave this 3 stars, but I'm really glad that I finished it. It's a very chunky book, and it was one I've been meaning to read for a while, but I probably will reread this in the future sometime when I feel more prepared to read it. But yeah, I gave this 3 stars. It is by Samantha Shannon, if I didn't already say that. Still recommend it if you're looking for a really good fantasy. I feel like this would still be a really good book to read. But yeah, 3 stars. And then the last book I have to talk about is Carmilla by, I can't remember the author, Sheridan Le Fanu. I think I gave this 2 stars, but there's some good lines in here, and vampirism is very interesting in here. I really like how kind of vampirism works and how they kill a vampire and stuff in this book. Like, I found those elements of this really interesting, but as a whole I just found this a bit dull. And I listened to this on audio, and I listened to the Audible original for this, and let me tell you, that is the weirdest audiobook I've ever listened to in my life. I felt so uncomfortable listening to it, and it was just too weird. There's a lot of moaning in it and breathing, and it's not necessary. Like, it's not like there's a smushy scene going on in here and that's why there's moaning. No, there's just random unnecessary moaning throughout this book, and it's just weird, and I just didn't vibe with it, and I just didn't like it. It didn't give me good vibes at all, and I just really didn't enjoy it. So yeah, I liked the vampirism in this, like, for what it was, but the actual story and my experience with the audiobook is what's making me give this 2 stars. I'm sorry, but it's got to be 2 stars. It did have that really cool gothic vampire vibe, but besides that, it's just a no for me. It was 2 stars, and yeah, I'm a bit sad about that. This book did actually come out before Dracula as well, so obviously it was written a long time ago, so you do have to bear that in mind. I mean, if you like your gothic literature, your vampire stories, then you might want to give this a go. I think maybe physically read it, or just don't listen to the Audible original version. I wish I'd found the other versions before listening to that one. But yeah, this basically follows a girl and her family, and they end up taking in this other girl called Carmilla, because her mother says she's got to run off on urgent business, can you please look after my daughter? And they're like, yeah, sure, okay, cool, you're just a random stranger, but come live with us for 3 months. Normal. And she does, and then all these weird things start happening, and our main character Laura starts having like really weird stuff happen to her, and her and this relationship with Carmilla becomes very toxic and very, I don't know what the word is, strange, and they like love each other, but I could never tell if it was in a romantic way or a sisterly way, or or maybe it was a bit of both. I could never really quite figure that out. Carmilla basically gets Laura under a spell. Yeah, all this weird stuff's happening, and I'm not going to go into any more because I don't want to give any spoilers. But yes, there's vampirism in here, obviously that ties in, but I'm not going to give any spoilers. It was kind of cool to see how it all played out, but yeah, it was just, like I said, just not for me, guys, not my cup of tea. I did DNF a book in October, which I literally never do, but I DNF'd Into the Vampire. I know a lot of people love Anne Rice, and they love Into the Vampire and her writing. I can tell that she is a brilliant writer. I do not disagree at all. I just really hated that book. I did not finish it. I DNF'd it, I think about 70 pages in maybe. It was just so dull and boring. And I'm sorry, I know a lot of you guys will love it, but it is okay to like different books and not all feel the same way. Nobody's right or wrong. There'll be books that I love that a lot of you probably hate and think are rubbish, and you know, that's cool, that's fine. I just really didn't vibe with it. I really didn't like it. It just was not for me, and I could tell, like, hearing certain lines, that it's beautifully written, but it was just, I don't know, I just did not vibe with it. It's just not my cup of tea. I didn't like it. I am disappointed because I really, really hoped that I would. But yeah, I think maybe it's the whole kind of, it's not written like a classic, but it has that sort of vibe, and maybe it's just that classics kind of style aren't for me. I don't know. I just didn't like it. I DNF'd it. So there was that as well. I can also see obviously why a lot of people would like it, because the writing was good, and obviously it's just one of those like kind of iconic books. I watched the movie was okay, but I wasn't a massive fan of that either. So yeah, it just wasn't for me. But back to the point, I finished 10 books, which is amazing for me. I'm really, really glad that I did. Vampathon definitely was the reason behind a lot of that. And yeah, I'm just really, really happy with what I read. There was a few 5-star reads in there for me, so that's always great when you get some 5-star reads. And yeah, 10 books is good for me, so let's see if I can do 10 books this month, but we shall see. If you've read any of these books yourself, then let me know your thoughts down below. I always like to hear different opinions. I know some people probably hate some of the books I've talked about, and some of you probably love them, so it'd be interesting to read which ones and why. So yeah, please do let me know in the comments which of these you've read and which you really loved or hated. Give this a big thumbs up if you did like it, and subscribe if you like to, and I will see you guys soon. Bye!